All right, so Djokovic and Nadal are on the same half of the Paris Masters draw. The draw has just come out, so we're going to break it down, look at the matchups, look at where the different players are. So I'm still in Basel right now covering this tournament, but we're looking ahead to Paris, and I'm heading there on Monday. So the big question to me is, with Djokovic and Nadal in the same half of the draw, what's going to happen there? But also, who's the real number one? Obviously, Alcaraz is the number one player in the world right now, but Djokovic hasn't been allowed to play two different majors. Nadal hasn't played due to injury. Medvedev has lost the number one spot, and I feel like he's trying to get back there. So I think in these last two tournaments, we're going to see who the real number one is on the men's side here. So let's break down this Paris Rolex Masters draw. And here's the slice presented by BetSnap. All right, how are you doing? Welcome back to the show. As I said, I'm still in Basel, so I've been getting the front row seat to some amazing tennis here in Basel. The indoor season, I think, is awesome because weather doesn't play a factor. It's faster tennis typically, and we just get to see lots of awesome tennis. And speaking of awesome tennis, my guy, Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime, is absolutely tearing it up. He's on an 11-match win streak. He's won two tournaments in a row coming into Basel. Now he's in the semifinals. He's playing Carlitos Alcaraz tomorrow. So that's going on big time. We got the Paris Masters draw. If you want behind the scenes access, I just made a video today kind of breaking down some of the gossip, some of the interesting stories that I've heard. Join the channel or join our Patreon. The link's down below, and you can get access to that. The slice is presented by BetSnap. So if you're looking ahead to this draw in Paris and you're looking at who's the outright winners, if you're going to compare odds, and you want to bet on the tennis to make sure you get the most for what you're doing, use BetSnap. It's a way to line shop and find the best odds for the same bets. Because if you didn't know, between platforms, between sports books, the odds for the same bet can actually vary quite a lot, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. So make sure you're getting the best odds for the bet that you're going to make, and use BetSnap. The link is below, and use the code SLICETENNIS. Shout out to BetSnap for supporting the show. If you're new here, subscribe, like, all the stuff. And we're going to break down this draw. So we got a picture here of the draw from our good friend of the show, Sasha Osmo there. So it might be a little small for you to see, but if you don't have a microscopic screen, I'm sure you can. So number one seed is Alcaraz. Number two seed is Nadal. Number three seed is Ruud, which is kind of funny to have him above Djokovic, who's at the number 6 seed. But the big story is Alcaraz is on the top, and then we got, so the potential quarterfinals would be Alcaraz, Rublev, Medvedev, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Djokovic, Ruud, Tsitsipas, Nadal. So that's kind of how the top 8 seeds are broken up. If we're just going to zoom in here on the top left corner, we got the Alcaraz quarter, and he could play Berrettini in the, I guess that'd be like the round of 16. Berrettini's not guaranteed to show up because he is struggling, I think, with a foot injury. But then Alcaraz could play Rublev in the quarterfinals, which would be very hotly contested, I'm sure. Rublev is still trying to guarantee a spot in the ATP finals, which he hasn't yet, but he should be there, and he most likely will. But he did lose already in Vienna, so that is not great for him. And then we got in the second quarter, we got Medvedev, the number 4 seed, and Felix Auger-Aliassime, number 8 seed, hottest guy in tennis right now, in my opinion. TFO and Fritz also in that bottom quarter, which makes it a super dense quarter as far as talent goes. And then we got Djokovic, Nadal in the same half. Djokovic is in the quarter. I guess Djokovic is technically in Ruud's quarter, which is funny. But let's be honest, it's Djokovic's quarter. Djokovic could play Sinner in the round of 16, which is would be his second match, which could be definitely super tricky for him. If Sinner plays well, we saw that at Wimbledon. Sinner can hurt Djokovic, so that's a super interesting matchup, especially on the faster indoor courts. And then Cilic could play Ruud in the third round, or the round of 16. And we got Tsitsipas, Norrie, Pablo Carreño Busta, and Nadal in that last quarter. So pretty dense. So where are we at in the season with Djokovic and Nadal? If I'm not mistaken, and I'm not, Nadal has not played since the US Open, right? So he lost there to Francis TFO in a great match and just had birth of his son, probably having some family time, hasn't played at all, rested up the body. Old man Nadal, he needs that. So now he's coming back in. Some people were surprised he's playing Paris. I'm not surprised. It's a Masters 1000, and why wouldn't he play? Like, he's still, if you want to play on the tour, you're gonna have to play. Like, why would you not play? Especially if you're going to go into the ATP finals. Paris is a great warm up for that, and it's a big tournament. So he's here, he's playing, and I'm interested to see where his level's at and how he handles. Typically the indoor hard courts has been his least probably successful surface of them all. So we'll see how that works. He could play Tsitsipas in the quarterfinals. That would be interesting on these indoor courts. Tsitsipas has been okay. He's kind of had a little bit of a depressing time, losing already. He lost to Korch again today. Second time he's lost to him in this second half of the year, which is crazy. And he lost to Rune in the final of Stockholm, and he lost to Djokovic in the final of Astana. So Tsitsipas has kind of had a hard go of it, if you think about it, but he still had a great year. I talked to him in Stockholm about that. It's hard to kind of put your thumb exactly on if it's been a good year or a bad year for him. He's won a lot, but he hasn't won the things he really wants to win, if that makes sense. And then Djokovic, he won back-to-back titles in Tel Aviv and then in Astana. So he took some time off. Now he's coming back into Paris. So in my opinion, Djokovic is probably the favorite. Let's be honest, just because he's ranked number 6, like we all know that doesn't mean a lot. So he's my favorite coming in. He's on the bottom half with Nadal, so that's going to be super interesting. His biggest threats might be Medvedev, Alcaraz, Felix. They're all on the top. So that's interesting because he'll play one of those guys probably in the final. Medvedev typically in the last couple seasons has owned this time of the calendar, so he's going to be very hungry to get deep again. He's in the semifinals of Vienna. He's playing great there. So he could play TFO in the round of 16. We already talked about that. We'll see what I'm interested to see is how Alcaraz, this is his second tournament, basically. He played the Davis Cup right after the US Open. I kind of give that a little bit of a pass because it was so quick. Then he lost in the first round in Astana. Now he's playing well again. He's into the semifinals in Basel, but he hasn't been and maybe he's never really done this, but he hasn't been blasting guys off the court. It's been a bit back and forth. Like, he's got broken, but then he breaks back and finds a way to win these matches. But there's definitely that pressure for him to play as the number 1 player in the world and show why he's there and prove that he is the real, true number 1. So I think, I don't know, it's just weird. I was in press with him today, literally asking him a question. And I'm just like, man, 2 years ago, none of us really had our eye on this guy at all. And now he's just the number 1 player in the world. And guys like Djokovic, Nadal, Tsitsipas, all these guys are chasing him in the rankings, which is kind of just crazy. So we'll see how he can hold his nerve and play these last, he's already playing well here in Basel, but he's got a big tester match tomorrow against Felix, which I'm picking Felix, but we'll report on that. So stay tuned to the Instagram and the Twitter, all the above. So it's just going to be interesting to see how he carries that mantle of being the number 1 player going into these, because technically as the number 1 player in the world, you should win every tournament you play. That's your goal for sure. And I know that's his for sure. So he's just totally locked in. It's cool to be in his presence, just see how this kid's just such a beast. And then I think Medvedev's coming back for his title. Medvedev plays better as not the favorite. We've seen that. I think he plays better when he's not the world number 1. But it has been an interesting year for him in general. So regardless, the draw here in Paris is stacked, as it always is. And we're going to look forward to, or I'm looking forward to seeing how the later stages go. If we get a potentially Djokovic, if we get a Djokovic and Nadal matchup on the bottom, that would be pretty crazy. Let's just take a quick look through here at some of the first round heat matchups. We got Holger Rune versus Stan Wawrinka in round 1. Wawrinka in there with a protected ranking. That's a pretty crazy first round matchup. We got Korda versus De Minaur. Who else do we got? We got Schwartzman versus Cressy. That's interesting. Musetti versus Cilic. Evans versus Nakashima. Bautista Agut versus Tommy Paul. Tough route for Tommy Paul as of late. But yeah, just Masters 1000. All the best players in the world are here, and that's what we like to see. So what do you think about the draw? Djokovic and Nadal on the bottom half. If they were to play, it'd be massive advantage Djokovic. I don't think Nadal's beaten Djokovic on a hard court since 2013 or something like that. So it's actually been an insanely long time. But there is an unedited version of the slice covering the Paris Masters draw. We're going to be there on the ground soon. But before that, we have to take care of business here in Basel. So follow my Twitter down below. Follow at the Slice on Instagram. We'll be keeping you updated on all the action. And there is a preview for the draw in Paris. Let me know what you think about the draw down below. And thanks.